So back to Desert Ridge here. You know, we had the great benefit of a client with an open mind and an open ear, and someone that was willing to do something that was more about the Sonoran Desert than the Caribbean, and we were successful. But this is also a good project precedent that we take with us when we go overseas. We're the project landscape architects for the University of Monterrey, Mexico, which is Mexico has elevated itself to Mexico's top university. It's a private institution. It's only 40 years old. It's also a Catholic university. But actually, this picture, which, you know, when they called to say, "Are you interested in the project?" Obviously, we go online now to see what the site is all about. If you look at the development pattern, you know, you see things that a landscape architect sees. You see a topography and a hydrology and a drainage system that's been disrupted. You see, you know, they started with some buildings here and they built a parking lot up to the building, and then the next building wants to be bigger, so, you know, it blocks even more, and then the parking lot comes up. And the university is completely disconnected. But this is not unique to Mexico or China or other parts. This could be University of the Pacific here in Northern California. It's just the way the development happens over time. But what's startling to me is that this is their landscape. This is the landscape of Monterrey, Mexico, very similar to the Sonoran Desert. And this is what they've replaced it with. This is the landscape that they have actually constructed on top of the Sonoran Desert. And, you know, during this first site visit, we walked around, and this is basically their open space program. And they kept saying, "It's really hot here. It's really hot." You know, the joke in Monterey is that it's so hot that they actually go to Scottsdale to vacation in the summer. And it's true. It's like deadly hot. Except this one place, which, by the way, Starbucks, you know, located right next to it. And so, you know, this is like on day one on the site when you say, well, you know, this is all you need to do for your landscape. You need to recognize that, you know, you have an urban forest here, you have vegetation, you have beautiful natural light, you have topography. The reason that this space works in the university is because it's brought all of these things together. So let's start with this as the master plan to your campus. It sounds very simplistic, but, you know, I think quite often in landscape architecture, that's what it takes. We always partner with local experts in wherever we go. And in this case, it's actually quite simple. We went to the university bookstore, found a book on native plant material for the Monterey area. It turns out that Diego is not only a wonderful person, he's trained as a landscape architect and a civil engineer. So he immediately became our partner. And those types of partnership are so critical when you're working overseas to kind of combine global and local. The thesis of the master plan in this case was a big surprise to the university, because what they had done is they had gone to Stanford, they had gone to Harvard, they had gone to UCLA, and they really wanted this kind of US style of campus exported or imported, in their case, to Monterey. And what we were saying is that you need to work locally. All your materials, 500-mile radius. Monterey is very much an industrial city. Cementinos Mexicanos is a part of Monterey, huge in metal forges and metal fabricating. So part of the master plan is you can do all this locally. You can employ local craftsmen, local trades. You don't need to import from the United States. Think about not just your native vegetation, but your native craftsmen. And let's put them together to build this master plan. The other thing about working internationally is that it does make for odd bedfellows. This is my client, Ana Cecile Canton Guzman, who hired, while we were in the middle of the master plan, Tadeo Ando to do the student, the art center for the campus. And I have worked in Japan, and the idea of having a conversation with Tadeo Ando in Japan is impossible. He's treated as a demigod. He's just it's amazing the crowd that walks around him. But you know what? When he comes to Monterrey, Mexico, you can eat a taco and swill tequila with him. And he's just another person. And he's a great guy, you know, really, really nice, very easy to work with. So we collaborated, you know, on the art building, which is right here, including the plaza and the entry, and bringing the master plan in its first inception, its first built project will be the Hideo Ando building. And it's a very significant building. Just keep this one for the record books here. There wasn't much shown, but many people believe this will be the most significant building in all of Latin America, and it may be, you know, one of his final buildings as well. So, little sidebar here, but I love Japan. In the early '90s, I worked in Japan, and the thing about Japan, one of the unique things, is the commitment to craft, to quality, to executing the idea. There is no punch list in Japan. There is no punch list. If there was a punch list, they would never invite you to the site until there wasn't a punch list. It's an amazing experience. Working internationally also brings big opportunities, and by big, I don't just mean scale, but also it gives the opportunity to go into areas that are very difficult to break into in the United States, and particularly in the realm of urban design. Landscape architects have a stronghold in urban design in Asia because it's about public space. And it's not as dominated in Asia by building architects as it is here. And in fact, it's my observation that I think that there's a strong preference to have landscape architects doing the public realm and doing urban design in particularly China. This project, Beijing Finance Street, was an international competition. 18 urban blocks built as a single phase between 2004 and 2008. US $30 billion built as a single project. And the idea was very, very simple, very much a landscape-driven idea. It was creating a district around the idea of a park. And the benefit that that gave was, obviously, it gave two south facades to the district itself because the park became open space. And it was very daring what we did. We challenged the Beijing planning code, which says that each individual parcel has to have 20% open space. We said we're only going to give 10%. We're going to push the buildings closer to the street front, which gives a better pedestrian promenade. And we're going to take that excess 10% from the 18 sites and give it back in a park in the center. It's a kind of thing that would be very difficult, I think, to do in the U.S. with most city agencies, but it won the competition. And not only did it win, it was the mayor of Beijing himself who said, this is what we're doing. We want a park. We want to give the community a park back. The thing about, as I say, each country is, you know, unique, and each have their challenges. You know, for all of the good of Japan, it's also highly bureaucratic and very, very difficult to work there. And for those landscape architects who may curse working with civil engineers sometimes in this country, just try to do a project without one, because the discipline doesn't seem to exist in China, and it's kind of left unsupported. So the idea of, you know, coordinating manholes or even getting streets to align sometime or getting the grading right, very, very challenging, very, very difficult. And in China, it is not. It's the opposite of Japan. Japan is highly mechanized, highly, highly advanced in terms of what they can fabricate. China is not, and our landscapes are built by hand labor, unskilled hand labor, and unskilled in terms of, they just don't have the landscape tradition yet. You know, quickly acquiring it, quickly developing. But you need to respond to that wherever you go. You need to know, it's like one of the first questions, who's going to build a project? Therefore, how am I going to approach the design? But the payoff is wonderful. I think you have to judge each country, each project by its own merits. In China, the details in the construction is crude, but the impact on the public, the impact on entire communities is tremendous, and it's very, very rewarding. Number 3, global knowledge supports local projects. This is a big one. When I was in college, we heard about this thing that was coming, CAD/CAM, computer-aided drafting and design, and computer-aided manufacturing. Well, CAD came, but CAM has only recently come around. It's only very recently, within the last 5 years, that we're starting to see computer-aided manufacturing, and it definitely applies to how our projects are being built. And particularly in things like the world of stone, Cold Springs Granite in Minnesota, and the Chinese quarries all over China, this one comes from Dalian, or in Israel, all have the same technology now. And they're all cutting stone the same way. And in this project, which is in Salt Lake City, although the project, they wanted a LEED Gold project, but they just couldn't find the stone. They couldn't source the stone locally. Had to go kind of out of the 500-mile radius. We were able to actually go to the quarry that we use for Beijing Finance Street, talk to the owner of the quarry, bring our client to meet with the quarry, and convince that they could do this, that they could actually import the same stone, go direct, no middleman there, and have it water jet cut through our CAD files and fit perfectly with the stone that was coming from Cold Springs and the stone that was coming from the Israeli quarry. This is more and more going to be an issue in our profession in terms of how material is sourced and what technologies we have available to fit all the pieces together. This isn't a movie. This is the reality of the density of the developing world. And this is not even the highest density that we're seeing. This is kind of a typical second or third tier city in much of China. And this is something that is a reality of globalization. It's a reality of global manufacturing and the drive of people from the country to the cities. And within that, I think many people in outside of the United States, either public or private development entities, have discovered the power of landscape architects. They've discovered that they can have these very high-density neighborhoods if they give something good back on the ground plane. And this is a very, very important reason for us to be working international. This rapid urbanization and high density is not just increasing, land costs. These land costs are skyrocketing, and the demand for our services to make these cities livable is in very, very high demand overseas. Our clients know everything about us before they pick up the phone and call us. They've Facebooked us, or they've done some kind of way to really research who we are and what we can contribute. And they very much want our services. So the services are in demand, and they're also very much appreciated. And then finally, maybe on a more personal note, why work global? It's a curious world, and I'm a very curious person. It's very rewarding to go to other parts of the world and to see how the skills that I've acquired through my U.S. education and working, in the first office I worked at, SWA, and here in San Francisco, how it applies to other places, to bring my body of knowledge to these places and have it, be very useful, but also what I learned from the other places and I'm able to bring home to my projects here in the U.S. That's it. Thank you.